Nos encontramos en el espacio Entertainment, gracias al patrocinio de Amazon Ads. Como sabéis, Amazon Ads conecta marcas con clientes mientras compran o disfrutan de streaming, alcanzando más de 275 millones de personas al mes en Estados Unidos y ofreciendo soluciones publicitarias accesibles para todo tipo de empresas y presupuestos. Así que, ¿qué más se puede pedir? Bueno, pues ahora ya sí, para entrar de lleno en nuestra última charla de esta tarde y de este Inspirational 2025, me vais a permitir que cambie el inglés para presentar a nuestros últimos invitados. This final presentation of the second day, as I was saying, of Inspirational 25 is entitled Music, Science and Robots. It will be a conversation between old friends and co-directors of OKGO's 2014 music video, The Writings on the Wall, and of Love in 2025, and one of the most ambitious audiovisual pieces combining music, science, and visual experimentation. They will discuss the creative process behind this project, which goes beyond conventional music and cinematography. And they will also be moderated by a dear friend of us and of them. And let me just mention them. Here they are. They are Aaron Duffy from SpecialGuest, Damian Kulash Jr. from OKGO, and the CEO and co-founder of Espadaysantacruz Studio and SpecialGuestX, or X, Miguel Espada. Bienvenidos. Welcome, everyone. I hand it over to you, Miguel.
Gracias, Elena. It's such an honor to introduce Damian. You all know him from OKGO, which is the band that has produced the most memorable music videos in the past times, and Aaron Duffy, which is one of the most recognized creatives worldwide. And they have collaborated recently in the Love video that we are going to watch it now. But they have a story together that goes way back. So today, we asked them to talk about the story behind the scenes, the story behind these videos. And so for me, I'm just going to be here this minute just to introduce them, and I will handle the conversation to them. But first, let's watch Love, the music video, and then they are going to talk to us. Thank you, everyone, to be here with us.
3, 2, 1, Robot. Music.
Falls on your eyes. was waiting.
Should we jump in, Miguel? Okay.
Hi.
Yes.
Miguel, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing that. Thanks for the introductions. Super excited to at least be here over streaming. If we can't be there in person, wish we could be there. But thank you for inviting us to talk a bit about this. Of course, any conference that is about inspiration is a fun thing for us to be at and to talk about this project. What you see in this little photo here is me and Damian Miguel. Miguel didn't detail this when he did the intros, but Miguel was, we were all co-directors on this together. And Miguel especially, and his team handled a lot of the robot development and things like that. But I always like to give a reminder to everyone that when we are working on as directors, we're sort of calling ourselves out as directors. There's a massive team oftentimes behind things like this. So if you go to the next slide, you can sort of see like the full team of that. Anything you want to add just about for intros and stuff like that, Damian?
No, only that this was a spectacularly broad and diverse group of people. And it really, it was, it was 15 big projects crammed into one, because there was, there were really 3 separate robotics teams, all of which Miguel had to coordinate, and a whole universe of different different little teams that for whom this was a huge project, just in their little part,
Yeah. So this is all of us in Hungary, and we in Budapest when we got the project done. And I think, Damian, like the general thing that I hear the most, like with your projects, whether it's something I was lucky enough to work on with you or not, is how did OKGO come up with that, which is what you have on the next slide, Miguel. And I think it's both how did you do it and how did you come up with it? These are sort of, the same question. And we thought, since we get a chance to talk directly and it's not just like hitting play on a behind the scenes video, that it would be fun to maybe for you all to see some of the things that helped make the project possible. What did we do along the way? And give a little bit of an understanding of how something like this can happen. And I would start that from the very beginning of this project, which is this is an email from Damian that he sent me, which I don't expect anybody to read. But
for what
it's
worth, I don't actually expect anyone to ever read my emails, but I appreciate that you did, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it was a very exciting email to get. And I think especially I wanted to call out this first part of it. If you go to the next page, Miguel, and I'll just read it out because I think it helps. You've all just seen the video play, but just so you know, like where things like this start, like what, do you mind if I read it, Damian, or do you want to read it in your voice since it came from you? This is just the first paragraph that Damian sent. I'd like to make something like what we did for Writings on the Wall, which we'll come to in a sec, but leaning into reflections, light, shadow, changes, and maybe video feedback. Basically a long shot where it keeps surprising you that what you are looking at was actually a reflection. The robots would be required for moving mirrors extremely precisely to get reflection of a reflection of a reflection, and we'd want to see the robots to know what's making it all go. So that was from August last summer. The note that Damian sent about this, and Damian, I know there's some obviously a lot of other backstory to this, but I remember you talking about just like looking at mirrors that your kids had and mirrors in your house and things like that, and those were inspiration points too.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my parents had closet doors that opened up. There was a shared closet, and they had two doors to it that had mirrors on it, and you could stand between these two doors and make a sort of infinite hallway of reflection. And I remember playing in there a lot, and just thinking how magical that was. And I now have twins, 7-year-old twins, and while I was picking up their toys when they were toddlers, there was a sort of like a mirror surface that's on the back of a book for like 3-year-olds to just look at themselves, and it was sitting next to a floor length mirror. And I remember picking it up and seeing that reflection of a reflection again, and thinking, that is it's such a simple trick, and it has so much joy in it, and so much wonder and so much discovery, and that's pretty much the only part of our ideation process that ever has a real, like, pure aha moment, where there's just a like, oh, that's a really cool thing. And it really is just a feeling of noticing something in the world that you already find amazing. And from there, it is a pretty rigorous process of playing and figuring out what else is related to that, as Aaron, you know well, because we've done this before. It's like the first step is just get in a room together, try to figure out what the boundaries of this idea might actually be, and how many other ideas are adjacent to it, and fit in the same sandbox of play.
Yeah, and that's a good segue to the next thing, which is that within this little note that you sent, you talked about WOTW, which is Writings on the Wall, which is if you go to the next slide, Miguel, is a music video we co-directed together off your album Hungry Ghost. And that was a little over 10 years ago now. And so we'll play that as well, just so you can see this like jump from 10 years in the past to what you just saw.
Rotate and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and music and go.
Okay, great. So Miguel, you wanna jump to the next slide. One of the reasons I wanted to play that is because there was a little bit of experience that we got to have with mirrors within that. If you go to the next page, Miguel, you saw like a couple. There's a lot of moments actually within the video. Oh, interesting. You're starting not from the main clip. Okay, go to the next page, Miguel. Just for some of the mirror tricks from like an illusions perspective that are in there, we have a lot of experience like playing around with mirrors, and so that was one of the things, Damian, that we thought we might bring to the Love project. And so one of the first things that we did for Love is to start playing around with mirrors. Now, the other part of the puzzle is robots. So if you go to the next page, Miguel, we have experience working with robots. Miguel, this is a lot of what I mentioned to Damian, like, oh, I have a partner that I work with on a lot of robotic stuff. So if you click forward again, Miguel, people can see on the right side of the screen, if you go back one, working with a lot of these universal robots, which is what for the most part we used for the Love video. And so I mentioned to Damian that I knew you, that we could maybe figure this out somehow. And so we started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So we needed, Damian, you want to start by building the point about building the vocabulary, if you go to the next page, Miguel, and what we need to do in order to like build that vocabulary at the beginning? I can also jump in on that. I can't hear you, Damian.
You're on mute, Damian.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I started to say this earlier a little bit, but I think the filmmaking process is pretty similar to the way everybody else makes their films. It once you get such a complicated idea, you're talking about having a very complicated production process, but it's still linear. Like it's still, we needed really good producers and really good, budget alignment and really good schedule alignment and all the kind of things you normally do. But that's all still standard filmmaking. The process that I think is a little different is this sort of ideation process in the beginning, that what we're trying to do is we don't sort of sit down and try to think our way to a full idea from the get-go. We start with a very vague brief, kind of like what I sent you in that email, which is like, we want to play with reflections. We think there's a lot of tricks in this area. We think that there's a lot of discovery to be made playing with this and that. But then we have to actually get together and play with that stuff. And if we're lucky, the idea is something like this one, where you can actually do miniature versions of that. Like we didn't need a room full of life-size mirrors to be able to understand that what amazing tricks could be found. So you both, Miguel and Aaron, came out to Los Angeles, where the band is based, for 5 days of sitting in an office and just playing with mirrors. And the clip you see here is like, those mirrors are what, between 10 and 20 centimeters square, and you can see there's a little hook on the back of that one so that we could attach it to a C stand if necessary. But I think all in, we had somewhere between 12 and 20 mirrors in a small office, and we spent 4 full days just trying to figure out what amazing tricks we could discover with them. And the idea is, of course, not to. So the key point here, I think, is that we're not trying to, at this point, remake the song. We're not trying to find like an arc from little to big, or we're not trying to find moments of maximum contrast, or even anything that works as a sequence so much as we are building what we will use as our vocabulary. Like basically, if we think we're going to need 10 to 20 ideas over the course of 3 or 3.5 minutes of the song, then what we want is that times 1.5, right? Like then we want 15 or 30 ideas to start with, so that we can later use all the, like we can later sequence those ideas into something that feels like music, that feels like art, that actually has an emotional flow to it. And hopefully that helps us use the sort of moments of inspiration that I think are inherent to this, the kind of the sort of mathematical scientific wow, where your intellectual brain can process, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But your limbic lizard brain is going just wow. Like what we want to do is choreograph that wow sense inside of you in a careful way, so that you're having an emotional feeling throughout this rather than an intellectual one.
I also, I and Miguel, you can keep like running through these. I know some of them have sound on them, like while we're talking through, but like what Damian's saying about essentially building up this bag of tricks, I think it can feel, there's always this pressure to feel like we need to figure everything out.
Here we go.
I'll let this play. Actually, play this, Miguel, because I think this is important. I'll stop talking for a sec.
Your hands so warm with something else. We whirl and twirl, music's invented again. And this damn ballroom of nothingness. There's ever been.
Yeah. So just to pick up on what Damian was saying, we are looking for ourselves to feel inspired throughout this process of just like testing and things like that, by what we discover through being like very hands-on and just like trying things. There is this, you feel this pressure, I think, in these moments to figure it out, or as Damian was saying, kind of like solve for the song or like build the music video. But then there also needs to be this sort of letting go of that pressure a little bit in order to feel like, well, if we gear everything towards trying to solve the timeline or something like that, then we will miss these potential points of inspiration. And so that's this particular clip that Miguel just played ends up being almost one for one what is in the music video, but most things were not like that. And then you can see some of the other testing we were doing. If you go to the next page, Miguel, this is us just trying to understand what would it be like for a full human being to be inside a giant kaleidoscope. Will that video play or no? Maybe it won't. This is us testing, what the guitar solo part of it would be. We Damian had this idea that the guitar solo would sort of mimic, the visuals would mimic the sort of sounds of the sort of warpy guitar. And so we do this in this kind of kaleidoscopic way here. And then if you go to the next page, Miguel, this should play back, and you can sort of see the testing of this particular scene as well. And then I'll explain the issues with it.
Only song there's ever been. Love. Boom, boom, boom. The only song there's ever been's just begun. Love. Boom, 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 boom. The only song there's ever been has begun. Love, 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 love. It's love.
So the fun thing about that is it looks so cool, but also and there's so much testing that we can do these days without needing a big camera somewhere. But we can test things with our phones. But then this one worked quite well when it was like a tiny little hole for a phone. But then we had a lot to figure out when it came to using an actual large scale lens in the actual video. You can go to the next page, Miguel, and then maybe Damian, you want to talk about like the actual like mirror room and the testing of this.
But just so that we're not being too confusing, I want to clarify that like both of those last clips that we watched were from like the very end of testing.
Yes.
And that's why we're already singing the song and trying out how a section might move against the music. But like what going back to the one where you see just the two larger mirrors going around my head and then around Tim's head, the one that you said was almost identical to what wound up in the video. What's amazing about that clip to me is that that there's no robots involved, and for that part there were no robots involved in the final video either. It's just a pure mirror trick, and what you're seeing there is like day 4 of us trying out what happens when you move mirrors in this way and in that way, and what cool shapes can you see, what cool geometries can you see. What does it feel like when they move from one to another? Like, can you start sequencing these things so that they're not just sort of a fascinating still life, but they actually have this emotional arc to them? And only at the end of that process are we starting to go, could it possibly work for this part of the song? What would it feel like if we did it as if we moved from the verse to the chorus or from the chorus to the bridge or whatever? I both of those things that we just saw represent the last day of testing, when we finally got our bag of tricks big enough that we're starting to go, we are starting to solve for the song, which is not what we're doing in the beginning. And like you said, there is this pressure. Like, I think we all have this pressure to when there's a sort of gaping vacuum where you want there to be an idea, right? Like, I want to write a song. Okay, like, what song? Like, and if you start filling that in with like, I want it to mean such and such and such and such, you start reverse engineering things in your mind, and you can only use stuff you've either done before or seen before or heard before. And so you wind up recycling the same things over and over again because you have to refer to your own, like the library of experience you have stored. And if you start reverse engineering the thing you want to have only in your mind, you're working with a really limited set of tricks of like statements to say. Whereas if you actually just play for a while, going like, I don't know what I'm going to solve for, then you, or rather, here are a bunch of things that I think will later help me solve this. You wind up with a much bigger vocabulary. So I think that segues into what we're looking at here, which is that we knew we loved infinity rooms. We knew we loved Kusama infinity rooms, and of course there's been a million different variations of these. What we hadn't seen is how the geometry, what you see in an infinity room, how robots might make that different for us. So you're not looking at any robots here. You're obviously seeing a miniature that's just a action figure with little, like, 10 or 15 centimeter square mirrors that we tried every geometry we could think of. And that little tag you saw in the beginning was, I think, saying pentagon, because this is a pentagonal room. And the question was, how does a pentagonal room look, like, reflect differently than a square one does or a triangular one does? And most of all, what does it feel like when they flip from one to another? Because a lot of times what we think is going to be the most exciting, we've never seen this before, it's totally new. There's a reason we haven't seen it before, is because it's kind of boring. People tried that and it's not great, or it's a lot of work for something that's like, it looks exactly the same as everything else. And if we do tons and tons of these tests, and then we're really honest with ourselves as we go back through it, and we're able to sort of like reset our own mind's eye, you can try to have each one hit you fresh and go like, is that surprising? What does it make me feel? Does that feel sadder than the one before it? Does that feel more exciting than the one before it? Is like, what about this is really amazing? And I would say that the most amazing thing about the clip we're watching right here is watching the camera move into that triangle, because you feel the sense of wonder. You're like, oh my gosh, that's all real. Which is something we work on a lot. It's like, how do you show how do you show where this magic is coming from?
Yeah. I also think just trying to, test out anything that we can get our hands on, at the scale that we have it in a testing mode. Like, I think it's fun for people to see just sort of like how shabby things sort of need to be when we're testing like this, in order to eventually get to like a rough idea of like, okay, yeah, this is going to work, and this is going to feel real, because the scale ends up like really scaling up to a pretty high level. And so then that is to segue. I know we don't have a ton of time, Miguel, left, so we can like kind of flip through some of the robotic stuff. But we needed to set up a way of understanding how it was going to work with robots. Even though we knew we were going to have a lot more robots, we were able to get a sort of testing session together with 3 robots when we came to Barcelona to work with Miguel and his team, and test as much as we could. It's an extra level of trickiness, because the robots take time to program to do what you want them to do. And if you don't know exactly what you want your emotions to be just yet, and you're sort of playing and figuring it out, fortunately, Miguel and the team were able to like work with us really quickly on these things to try and like solve for our different ideas. But it was the same kind of playing around and finding that sort of like vocabulary and bag of tricks that Damian was talking about with mirrors, now just doing it with robots and trying to figure out what we could.
I want to note also that what I think is so incredible about Miguel and his team, and Christoph, and who was our KUKA wrangler, the big industrial robots that we knew we would want to use, but we only had access to on the shoot days. Was a very rare ability to translate between emotional and artistic asks and technical outputs, because the constraints and parameters of working with robots they're obviously very numerical, very very technical, and very, very complicated, but very defined, right? There's lots, you have to understand all sorts of very small details about how they work, but they're very hard limits to what can be done. And so usually when filmmakers wind up with robots on set, and I've seen this in other scenarios, what you have is a talented roboticist who says, "What do you want me to do? What do you want the robot to do?" Mm. And almost always the answer is, if you're truly being exploratory and artistic, is, I want it to make me cry, I want it to make me want to jump in my seat, I want it to surprise me, I want it to, what you're looking for is an emotional human response, and you needed a translation between, it's the job of both sides to try to find that middle point where you're going, what's surprising about this is that it stops on a dime. Right. What's surprising about this is that the way it moves, even though that's defined by a very clear, calculated curve, feels like it is like it's an improvised human fluid motion. Right. And so being able to I would say that our week of testing robots in Barcelona was less about what can these robots do, because that we can read on a spec sheet. It is, how does it make me feel when they do it? And what was amazing about Miguel and his team is their ability to see both the human art side of this and the technical constraints that make that possible or impossible. That's really where the art of something like this is. And I would say the same about our previs artist, Will Anderson, and who helped us.
Will Field,
basically, sorry, Will Field. Sorry, I'm doing different Wills. Once we have that bag of tricks and we've started to try to put together an arc, it's way past what anybody can test in the real world. And what we're going to do is start trying. Now, this is something that has to be prevised, and this is what we're looking at here is Will's previs that was done over the course of many months and so many levels of iteration, and he has to both understand what we're looking for emotionally, and what we're trying to discover emotionally, so that as he's doing this in hour 15 of revising this thing, he can still notice, oh my God, that's surprising, that's beautiful, I want that moment, and bring it back to us and be like, look what I've just discovered. That is a really rare and amazing talent in technologists and artists alike.
Yeah, I mean, the preview is just amazing to have. I know we're at the end of the time, Miguel, as I understand it. The rest of the things that are in here are really just things that people can see from the behind the scenes video that is online. But the main thing I wanted to leave with is that it's a very lucky thing to get to work on an OKGO video and to work with Damian, just because you don't, like you see in a lot of the examples here, you never really get to play this much in the work that we do, not as much as we get to in this work. And so just the ability to like find inspiration and test things is really what we wanted to show. And I feel very lucky to get to do that. So yeah, the rest of the things that are in here is you can see if you look up the behind the scenes of the Love video, so you don't feel like you're missing anything here. But I know is this the end of the time, Miguel?
I think so. I think we have a few minutes for questions, Selena.
Yes, sorry guys, I was muted. I couldn't unmute myself. Bueno. First of all, guys, my God, this is, I mean, it's amazing. It was fantastic to watch it, although you can watch it once and you want to watch it over and over again, because, you know, you have truly achieved that emotional human response you were talking about. I think it was Damian. It's amazing. And your tailor has a great job and has a lot of fun in the office, because some of those costumes, especially for that the writings on the wall video, I mean, that is fantastic. So please, Miguel, call me for the next project, or Damian, I just want to be there. It's fantastic. We have a lot of questions, but we don't have much time. Let's go through some of them. Some of them are, first of all, people are very interested in knowing how long did it take, the project, especially Love, but I guess it can be applied to the writing on the wall as well, because from the beginning to the end, how many months does this involve? You mentioned Barcelona, you've mentioned Budapest, you've mentioned, you know, so average, roughly.
The first email, I mean, I think there's probably even a text before that email, Aaron, where I was like, do you know anyone who's good at robots? But that's late August of 24, and it was in the can by early February. So what is that, 6 months-ish, even less, 9, 10, 11, like, you know, five-ish months. But that's not all consistent work, right? So it's a week of play in early September in Los Angeles, a week of play in November in Barcelona with the robots. Then 2 months of 2 or 3 Zooms a week, trying to solve the production issues. Then 3 weeks on the ground filming in January and February in Budapest. So, 5 weeks where we're all in the same room, but 4 months altogether of prep work. And I cannot overstate how much work goes into this from the production angle.
We can see. Well, we can see that.
No, but I mean, not the 3 people you see on this call. That like what makes it really hard is that we're then taking this back to a producer saying, we need this many robots. We don't care what continent we're on.
I know, but I mean, this is my own question, not from the audience, but now that you mentioned the robots, I worked for, I presented events for Universal Robots with the robots there, and they're amazing, those arms, fantastic. How did you manage to get all those robots from these guys? Because they cherish those robots like you know, they're so expensive and they're so delicate in a way, despite
we were incredibly lucky to have such amazing partners in Universal Robots. I mean, we started this out going, we could only do this if we were working with Universal Robots, and Miguel, of course, has a great relationship with them. We did our testing at their facility in Barcelona so that they could come and see what we were doing and work on it. And then it was we had to coordinate between their US and European teams so that anything that wasn't being used for trade shows and showrooms and stuff like that, we could borrow just for those 3 weeks. And that we had to pay a lot of the shipping on that, but they were very generous to allow us to borrow them, which is without that this would have been undoable.
Nobody can pay for that. It's amazing. I've seen them in action in real life, and they're fantastic and it looks great. They also ask you about about love. You already mentioned some of the challenges, both creative and technical. But they ask you what is the biggest creative and or technical challenge what was when you face in bringing it to life, love. What was the biggest creative or technical or both, or which one was more challenging? I guess the technical part. Yeah, I don't know.
Aaron, you'll probably have a better answer than me, but the technical part is sort of this always the same, which is that we really don't want to fake any part of this, and so so doing it, knowing that we are up against a deadline, that we're going to run out of time, and that the more we think about the fact we're going to run out of time, the worse we will use our time between now and the end of it. So everybody's starting to freak out towards the end, and we got the final take that you saw. We got that in the third hour of overtime on our last day, and it's really the only usable take. So like we were very close to not getting anything at all, or having to try to find the money to pay for an entirely another shoot day after that, which would have been almost impossible. So the main technical thing is really just coordinating the army of little technical things. Does that sound right to you, Aaron?
So it's time and time management more than the technical. I guess the technical and creative is the fun, and the management is the nightmare side of the whole project. They also ask you about AI, and there's several questions. I'm going to try to put them in one. In an age of when AI can generate almost anything, what do you think the truly human part of creativity still lives? And also, do you think the future of art lies in this fusion between science and human imagination? So I don't know if there's a double question, but I guess it relates a bit to AI and where AI let's say technology and human creativity live and coexist, and if this is where we're tending all the creatives more into this kind of products and of videos and music and a mix of all that we've seen with love and writings on the wall.
I think the unique thing, and Damian, I'm sure you have thoughts on this too. The unique thing about working on specifically on an OKGO music video is that even before the AI era that we're in, there was already a decision, made by Damian and the band that they would try and create music videos that had the feeling of being at a live experience. And like when you watch it, you almost feel like you're there a little bit. And the reason you feel like you're there is because there's no edits and there's not sort of extra layers of post-production there. It's almost like your eye gets to be like the video. Could you do that in AI? You could do anything in AI basically. The reason to do it for real though, and to not have the sort of like level of post-production is to feel this sort of like human tension in it. This sort of like feeling like, are they going to make it? Like, is it going to work or something like that? Once you start, and it's a real question, because the question of whether someone's going to get hit by a robot is like a real question. So like you lose that tension when you do something in a very post-heavy or AI way, and so then you lose sort of the point of it in that case. That's not to say that there isn't amazing use cases for AI production and stuff like that. It's not against those things, but it's a very like special thing, I think, to do it in the way that OKGO does it.
Yeah, I'm very bad at answering questions quickly, and I'll do my best. But I think it has always been the case that when anything is possible, nothing is special, right? And that sort of inadvertently carved out the spot for OKGO videos in the first place. That if that throughout all of my lifetime, I've been watching films in space where people fly through the stars and you feel people float through zero gravity and everything. That is neat, but it never had a sense of wonder or awe to me. It was just another place where a film could be. But if you actually see a person doing that for real, your sense of awe and wonder is returned to you because of a relationship, like a contract between the people there doing it and you, the viewer, that you know it's real, right? Now, the thing with AI, of course, is that it converges. Like it gets to the point where like you will have no idea whether or not it is real, and I think that will inherently flatten experience. We will have a lot less wonder and joy and awe at all of these things because you won't really know whether or not it's real, and you'll just assume when something is too amazing that it is too amazing. It's not real, and I think it will stop us from having a certain type of wonder and awe. Having said that, I used to feel that way about certain types of electronic music that are sort of like, yeah, it's cool, but whatever, it doesn't feel like a human. And there's an entire generation of people for whom that music is just as alive and well and emotional as anything I grew up on that was much more, that had much more apparent and obvious humanity to it. So do I think humanity will adapt to it and still find ways to emote through art? Yes. But am I glad that we started long before this to like actually define a production process where like I think our viewers already trust us. Like I don't have to tell them it's not AI, luckily, because we've been doing this for 20 years and hopefully they believe us at this point. I'm terrified by what's coming. I'm also amazed by the power of it all, and I have no insight that anyone here doesn't already in terms of whether that will be mostly good or mostly bad.
I totally agree that the feeling of awe, we can sense it from the beginning to the end of those two clips we've seen, of two videos where writings on the wall and love is amazing. To tell you the truth, I wasn't at least myself wasn't even thinking, is this AI, is this AI, or is this a human imagination and no AI at all? Because it's just the creativity, the idea is so mind blowing that it's fantastic. I would have not cared really, because I guess the true secret sauce, I guess in your case, in both of you guys, is that you have these fantastic ideas, whether you put them, execute them with more or less artificial intelligence or techniques or whatever, I don't care, but just the thought of it. And it's true that obviously your clients, your followers, they know what you do, and you told us a bit of your secrets of how these ideas come up to life. I'm telling you this because I have another couple of questions. The next one, in a way, asks you if you have one piece of advice to young creators who dream of breaking boundaries, what would you tell them to encourage? What would you tell them to encourage them to mix disciplines or create without fear? I guess what you're trying to say is, what piece of advice do you give to young people that see this, or would you encourage them to mix disciplines, to create without fear? What would you give? What would you tell them?
This is a little bit of this is a hard, easy thing to say and a hard one to do, but I think it's the only way you could that it really ever has worked, and certainly now. Do the thing that only you can do. It's very hard to know what that is in the moment, of course, yeah. But what it is a feedback loop, a recursive loop between the thing you make and the way it makes you feel. That especially in the face of AI, what AI is a giant averaging machine, right? It's just like it's taking all of the things people have made and trying to figure out what it is, the way that we make things. Well, don't make things the way we make things. Make the things the way you make things. So like, What is it about your experience in the world? What is the thing that you notice that other people don't notice? Or what is the most emotional point you had in your day today? Because nobody else had that. And why did you have that reaction? And is there a way that you can harness that, whether it's your pain and sadness, whether it's your joy and whether it's your pure ambivalence about the world, like that art is really about experience. And if you start trying to reverse engineer from somebody else's experience, you've already lost. Like, you need to live in your experience as clearly as you can and double down on it over and over again.
I really liked it. Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron. Yeah.
I was just gonna add something because I think Damian said it exactly right. There's a part of it that that I like try and remember for, like, people getting into things and stuff like that. That doesn't sound so creative or exciting even, but the first point is to have that thing that only you can do, that Damian mentioned, but then you can't do that in a vacuum. You have to, like, the reason Damian and I are working together is because a producer that Damian works with knew someone else that I was working with. There is a sort of like meeting people, like getting out in the world and like getting to know people, that is really important. That you can have the most like amazing ideas, but if you're holding them in and not like really meeting people, I noticed like that some folks like just getting started are saying, but I'm posting it on Instagram and I'm making my website, but there's just a lot of stuff online, and it's a human connection. It's like a connection to a person to a person to a person on like a real level that makes a huge difference. And it can be hard to get out there and do it, and can feel scary to do it sometimes, but it's important. Go ahead, David.
And other people make you and you make you better. Like Aaron and I would say, I don't know if we've ever discussed exactly, but I think we work together well because we make each other better. Like, because Aaron is really good at pushing my ideas farther and going, yeah, but why did you want that? I like that, but I think a lot of people wait till they have a lot of self-confidence and are clear in what they're doing to allow themselves to interface with other people that way. And that's a mistake. Like you don't need to be right. You need to be challenged. It's better to have, like, you'll know when you're in a room and and it feels like the idea you came in with just got better. It feels like magic. You're like, that's how did that happen? Collaboration always makes things better.
Of course, I guess that is the ultimate point, or the ultimate goal of love, friendship, and partnership in professional partnership, is to make each other, one another or each other better. In that sense, and in order to finish, well, I also want to say, you said do the thing you can only do, and you gave us a bit of an idea of how you work as well, Damian. But both of you, when you went in with those mirrors and you say, well, let me see what I see. I mean, you didn't really know what you were looking for. Sometimes it's just trusting. Otherwise, you were building. You mentioned you're building on you are reversing engineering, and what you want to do, maybe it's jump into the unknown. And you gave us. I found that was pretty interesting.
To be clear, with those mirrors, for instance, anybody could put those mirrors together. What we're looking for is, how do those mirrors make me feel? Like, be really honest with yourself about, like, what is my response to this, and then can you build on that? It's not that I'm the only person who can put mirrors together. It's that I'm noticing my own reaction to them.
Yeah, but you said let's do it and experience and see how it makes you feel and what you discover. Yeah. To finish, because we're well beyond over time. But they ask you, what is your next project? Is there something you're preparing together, whether together or separately? Is there anything we can look forward to in the coming months?
Yep.
Come on, give us more. Give us more.
If we're lucky enough to do something again together, what we're hoping to do is something that uses really tactile materials, something that is like, could we make something that is anti-digital?
Wow. Well, looking forward to that. I'm sure Kusama would be proud of you. Amazing work. I don't know if she's seen it, but there you go. It was fantastic having you both. Thank you so much, Aaron Duffy from Special Guest, Damian Kulash Jr. for OKGO. Congratulations. It was the best way of finishing this Inspirational 25, the conference and the talks. It was the perfect golden closing, way of doing it. Thank you so much, Miguel Espada from Espadaysantacruz studio and SpecialGuestX. It was amazing. Miguel, next year you're gonna have to keep this level or go even beyond. I don't know how you're gonna do this, but you have to bring us this same level at the beginning and at the end of next year's edition. So thank you for an amazing presentation, an amazing work, guys. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more coming from you. No, Miguel, anything you want to add just to finish?
No, just to repeat that I'm so grateful for to have Damian and Aaron here, and to be so nice to share all that is behind these jobs. For me, it was really an honor to work with them. I did what I could to help them with my expertise, but the real artists are Damian and Aaron.
Well,
Not
we
true.
say
This
goodbye
was
to.
a very collaborative.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead, Helena.
I just want to say thank you so much, Damian, Aaron, and Miguel. That was the perfect cherry on the cake. So we're going to say goodbye to you guys. I'm going to switch back to Spanish just to say goodbye to all the guests. Thank you. Thank you for
everyone.
the questions.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you
so
Thank
much.
you.
The good job, the good work. Y ahora sí vuelvo al español para despedir a toda la audiencia. Muchísimas gracias. Siento que nos hemos alargado un poco más de la cuenta, pero creo que merecía la pena porque teníamos una charla para cerrar las conferencias de este Inspirational 25 súper. Así que gracias por las preguntas, gracias por estar ahí. Hemos terminado esta edición, por lo menos las conferencias. Ha pasado volando. Pero bueno, tenemos mucho trabajo por delante, muchas ideas, mucha inspiración. Así que seguiremos trabajando, nos vamos a despedir, pero ya sabéis, no os olvidéis de parar, respirar y seguir inspirando, porque como muy tarde nos volvemos a ver en Inspirational 2016. Adiós.